Welcome to how to properly fill out the property spec sheet. This goes for insurance jobs along with retail. It's important to fill this out correctly because it's going to save you time during the build by being more efficient, along with allowing you to process the correct information for your estimates and also any work orders for your production manager. The first thing to do when you get to a property like this would be to get a picture of the front of the house and trying to get the address in there as well so we know, hey, where is this location and what number is it? First off, we'll start with a walk around. At this point, we're going to look for any previous existing damage that we can find on the house, whether it's storm damage or where to set up a ladder and enter the roof safely. Start with me. It's very important to note and get pictures of how far of an overhang that you have on the eaves so that we know if we need to do 1 or 2 courses of ice and water shield to reach code, as we have to exceed 24 inches inside the interior walls. So first off, we've got a 1-foot overhang here. That along with the pitch will determine how we're going to estimate the ice and water shield. Come with me and we'll look at some previous existing damage on this home. As you can see here, this is not hail damage, and we haven't done the roof yet. It's not roofer damage. So it's very important to make your homeowners aware of any previous damage, because once we do a tear off, the homeowners or the customers kind of open their eyes up to what's damaged, and it's usually always going to be the roofer's fault or who was here last. And we want to make sure that we document this with pictures, put it in job progress to where we know, hey, did the roofers damage this or was this previous existing damage? As you can see, this stucco home was recently painted this year. We want to make sure that we note things like that, because this customer does not want to paint the whole house again. Hanging tarps from the side and taking a little bit of extra precaution can go a long way to protecting the homeowner's house. Now, whether it's a roof or siding, things to note that may not be kind of like in our general training would be things such as the radon pipe. Okay, a company will put this in with a license, and we do not want to do any altering. So if you see a pipe such as a radon pipe or something like this, we want to note that if we are doing siding, for example, that we will need the company that installed this, that's warranted and tested these levels, to detach it, reset it, and charge us on the insurance claim so that we can go ahead and submit that, get it paid for, and properly reinstalled. If you go ahead and you get an estimate from that company and submit it to the insurance company, they should cover it as long as you can document why it needed to be done. If it's a retail or an out-of-pocket job, it's best to tell the customer to go ahead and work with the company directly to have them detach it and reset it, so that we're not a middleman and we're not charging them money in an area that they can be proactive themselves. So let's take a walk back here. On this house, you can see there's not a deck, there's pavers, and we've got this pergola. It's good to note where the damage is, just in case, let's just say, it gets windy and this thing falls over. As you can see, it's seen better days. We don't want the roofers to be, resting anything on this, walking on it. Not that they should. On construction sites, things happen out of the ordinary, and we want to know, what should we expect? Well, from the roofers, what we need to expect is, in the morning when we show up and check materials, we need to have all of this stuff moved off the patio, grill, patio furniture, a smoker, maybe any signs or any kids or any children's toys here. We don't want to take a chance and nail or anything hurting or damaging this equipment. Take 3 to 5 minutes with the crew and have them move this stuff to the grass. Furthermore, you can see that areas like the windows, especially for a new sales rep that hasn't experienced maybe a customer taking a little bit of an advantage of previous existing damage. This is what you guys did. Well, right now we're documenting that these window wraps, being aluminum, already have damage. So this is something we would want to put inside of our job progress and put under previous existing damage on the contract, whether it's steps or part of the paver patio, or maybe cracks in the driveway that could possibly be pointed at to the material being set on there. So you want to make sure that you document any sort of previous existing damage. plants such as the hostas or the Japanese maple, okay, you want to make sure that these aren't tarp. Okay, we don't want to just throw a tarp down on something and suffocate it and really just kill the plants. You know, we're trying to do something good, but if you don't do it the right way, then it becomes even a bigger problem. So for example, covering an AC condenser or AC unit here, you might try to say, hey, cover this up with a tarp, put OSB on it. Okay, the only way that you can really successfully do that and be sure that it's not going to burn up this unit would be to have it turned off, okay? We don't want to put things on top of this. We don't want to void their warranty. We don't want to burn the motor out. Best practice would be to either have the customer turn this off to where it's not running and then cover it, or just, you know, create a TP with OSB or not cover it at all, okay? Sometimes trying too hard results in bad things happening. You take a look around here, you know, it shows up here, different areas, you know, that you want to get documented. You know, we don't want to be paying for windows, window wraps, and things of that nature. So your walk around and the previous existing damage is going to go a long way for you, not only educating and informing your customer of, you know, what's here and why we have to do certain processes, but also save you money in the long run. So. In this area right here, you can tell that this line separates the neighbors one side from the other. We want to make sure that during the build, that this side of the yard, as petty as it may sound, does not have tarps and debris all day. We don't need to deal with a customer and another neighbor that we're not working with. So it's safe to say that, you know, half of this 6 foot here, really we should be trying not to have material on this side of the yard. Walking around to the front, looking over the brick, the stuccos, the windows, you can see that there's more damage up here. Definitely good to note that in the system and on the contract. Hey, you guys are aware that you do have existing damage to the windows or the gutters. This stuff's going to go a long way in you know, how your customer trusts you. Hey man, this guy's really informing me and going above and beyond what any of the other guys talk to about us, along with, again, protecting your paycheck. The Japanese maple, another tree that when we damage usually costs a lot of money, okay? So things like this we want to note to Tyler, your production manager, and the crew to protect. That pretty much covers the ground portion of the property spec sheet. Next we'll enter the roof and go from there. Thanks. All right, so I've located the place that I feel is the most safe to set up a ladder and also to enter the roof, okay? I like to personally, you know, find a place that's flat, okay, and sturdy for the ladder. And I also prefer any 90-degree area where a ladder can't slide either one direction or another. On this one, the ladder would not be able to slide to the right because we have a mitered corner here. The customer knows that we're entering the roof. They're not going to be backing into the ladder, and we also don't have our truck in the way to where they can't back out of the driveway. So from here, we want to make sure that the ladder is set up correctly. A correct ladder setup is going to be a little bit more kicked out right here. I've got a tie off up top, and to make things a little easier for entering and exiting the roof, I have a little over 3 foot you know, of the ladder past the gutter. It makes it a little easier to climb on and off the roof. However, we don't want to take it for granted that this area is just safety. So when I enter this roof here, I'll have my ladder tied off. While entering the roof, I check and see how many how many layers we have. Right here, I've got a picture that I can take either for the insurance company or for our own reference. We've got 1 layer, and then we have a starter strip shingle. Under the starter strip shingle, we have a drip edge. Okay, and all those are good to document, because if the adjuster says, hey, we put starter strip in with our waste, well, they owe for what's here, okay? And if you can show them, hey, they already have a universal starter strip, okay, that's a separate line item. It costs more than a regular bundle of shingles, and it is fair that you cover, you know, what is actually on the property. And that's right here. You take a picture of that, and then you have all the ammo that you need in the office to get that covered with any of these goofy adjusters excuses. So next thing, I'll take pictures, I'll document that, I'll safely enter the roof. I'm able to use the ladder to climb up, but what we don't want to do is lean forward on this handle, which would then pop the bottom of the ladder out. So for safety purposes, we would really prefer to put a bundle of shingles at the bottom of this ladder for safety, or have my partner here hold the bottom of the ladder. So Tyler, why don't you come down here while I get up onto the roof? Hold that ladder, stand on the bottom. I'll go ahead and enter the roof. Again, stepping above the gutter line and leaning over, see, it can push the ladder out. So it's very important that we have it tied off correctly, along with, I like to personally step a little bit below the gutter and make sure I'm not leaning my body weight in, which will kick the ladder out. These are basic safety practices that can make or break you literally. So I'll wait for Tyler to get up here and we'll start the roof inspection from there and fill out the rest of the sheet. All right, so we're on the roof now. We want to make sure that we fill out all areas of the property spec sheet so you don't have to get on this roof again. But the first and most important thing would be, step number one. I like to start from the bottom of the roof and work my way up and not walk backwards and potentially either walk off the side of the roof, trip over a vent, or fall or walk off the eave. Starting from the bottom will allow me to look up at the roof, assessing damage and any flashings at the same time, and to appropriately document the roof. We'll look at different facets or different parts of the roof. We'll want overviews of that whole area, along with close-ups of any special needed areas. So to start off here, this roof had wind damage. We did get it approved by the insurance company. Let's take a walk around here and kind of look at the condition of this roof. So this roof's probably 15 or 20 years old. It's missing quite a few granules. You can kind of tell it's an older roof. And a lot of times these missing granules come from improper ventilation. So some things that we noticed on this house is it's a gable roof and it does have a good ventilation system, being the ridge vent. But on the eaves, we did notice that there's only vents about maybe every 5 or 6 foot. Okay, the best intake vent would be a vent that would be all the way across the eaves nonstop, allowing an equal amount of air to come in the bottom and out the top. So that's why you're going to see a little bit more granule loss. These shingles couldn't breathe over time, and because of that, they did age a little faster than normal, and they do suffer from being a little bit brittle, along with losing granules. So when documenting damage, I prefer to have a wax pen. You can mark it and mark any of the damage or any special attention areas, and you'll know that, hey, this is going to stay here through a few rains and not just wash off the first time it rains. You should be able to do this one time, then meet the adjuster a few weeks later, and your marks are already still there. When estimating a roof, whether it's retail or insurance, we want to make sure that we know how many linear foot that we have of ridge vent. So you'll take your tape and you will hook it. Go ahead and measure the area of the ridge vent. Okay, it's simple to take all the ridge and order the sticks of ridge vent, but a couple things that we've noticed over the years is that if we only order, for instance, ridge cap to go and cover the whole roof, what we noticed is a lot of times under these areas we still need shingles or ridge cap, as you can see, like in these areas, to cover stuff up, especially if they end a little bit short of the end of the roof. So a problem that we have when using ridge vent is running short on bundles of shingles, because sales reps typically only measure the ridge vent. Most of the time they'll stop a little short, and then the crew has to run that ridge vent under the ridge cap under the ridge vent in order to really flash it properly. So one thing to note is that if you've got ridge vent, most of the time it doesn't go all the way to the edge, and we do need ridge cap shingles when it stops short to kind of run under that vent as well. So if you're doing a retail estimate, please don't undersell yourself on the ridge vent and really sell yourself short on commission. To properly do a chimney flashing right, as you can see, sometimes the insurance companies don't pay for the flashing. They say, hey, this is wind related, and the flashing wasn't damaged, okay? And the problem with that is if we get close here, and we look down here, we can't just reuse this flashing. You know, you've got caulk that's expanded and contracted over the years. You've got metal that's showing age, whether it be aluminum or steel, you know, it's gonna rust. And then on top of that, you know, when we pop this up with a tool to go ahead and remove and replace shingles, you know, that's consequential damage. That this is going to get damaged when we properly flash and take the step flashing in and out. So the only real way to properly do that, to do a flashing right, is to do it new, okay? And one thing that I'm seeing here that can really go a long way with getting this approved by the insurance company would be just looking at the flashing. So this flashing has nails through it. How would we remove, you know, the shingles, and let's say they're not even paying for step flashing? Well, how are we gonna not damage this piece of flashing that has nails through it? A lot of times if you can find pictures of nails or show them, okay, the adjusters need ammo to take back to their managers in order to get things approved. So if you can learn, you know, hey, why does this really need to be replaced, and give them a good answer or a good story, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to either get it approved on site or for that adjuster to take things back to their manager and get the claim approved. So when the adjuster first came out here, they refused to pay for the skylights. As you can see, there are roofers out here that would try to reuse these skylights. These skylights do not have a reusable flashing kit. This one's pretty unique to where it's got rubber that's dry rotting around here. And you can look at the inside of the skylight. Why don't you zoom in on this? And you can see that the wood around the skylight has taken damage, and that the skylight is not watertight, okay? Whether that is humidity inside of the home. Sometimes we'll see when there's a lot of snow and it's 5 degrees out, we'll see that there is condensation on the inside of the skylight. Well, a lot of times people don't keep their home at a proper humidity level. So knowing this, discussing it with your customer and saying, hey, you know, who in the right mind would be able to redo a roof and actually warrant a piece of equipment like this? Not anyone with a real reputation. So to get the proper measurement of a skylight, I like to measure on the inside. So let's act like we went on the inside of the skylight. Set a ladder up appropriately inside, have somebody hold it, and measure on the inside opening of the skylight. Okay, and then while I'm on the roof, I like to get the exterior curve measurements for that skylight, along with what I feel the inside measurements are at the same time. So the best method would be to have 3 sets of measurements and get with your production manager on what's going to be needed for that. But if you're doing a retail job and the customer has a skylight like this and they say, we're going with somebody that's keeping this skylight, not everyone's your customer. This is non-warrantable and not a good system. So from here, when we're talking length of shingles, a lot of times on our property inspections, we'll talk about discontinued shingles being 36 inches. As you can see, this one's 39 1/4 inches. So this is a shingle that's made lengthwise, but on this job we were not able to match it. So we did get this fully replaced, not because there was unbelievable amount of damage, but because, you know, we were not able to follow the Ohio uniform appearance. The exposure of the shingle is measured this way. As you can see, the exposure of this shingle is roughly 5.5 inches. That's the exposure length. Let's cut from there. While on the back of this roof, I'd like to go over a couple things that stick out to me that can help us succeed during the build. Now, first off, we see a lot of leak callbacks after we do a roof, even if they've had, you know, leaks before, or maybe they haven't. But some of the things that our production manager has noticed is that a lot of the leaks that we get actually aren't the roof or any of our work that's leaking. But if you inform your customers on, hey, what needs to be done with their property, and maybe, you know, a little bit about it, that's going to go a long way. So right here, we can see that this chimney cap or chase cover area needs to be sealed and really quite honestly, it needs to be reworked. This is a leak entry all around this area, all along the edge, and a lot of this brickwork, as you can see right here, is cracked as well. That's something that you want to put on the contract or go over with your customer. Hey, while we're up here, we noticed that you need a little work in this area as well. So if you know the way that a roof tears off, traditionally you're tearing off the roof downhill or down the slope. Again, the easiest thing, or what these roofers might be thinking is, hey, we can put OSB on this pergola here and really prevent any damage. Okay, common sense doesn't always kick in on construction sites, whether it's safety or whether it's, the workers doing things to prevent damage. Again, earlier we talked about covering the AC unit and trying to go above and beyond while actually creating damage or burning out the motor. This would be a perfect example of something that we don't want the roofers to touch, because this structure looks very suspect to falling over with rot and old age. Again, right here, sometimes you'll see the radon pipe actually cut into part of the roof. That's something that, during the initial walk around and final walk around, as a project manager looking over the job, you should be, taking a little look and seeing, does this look how it did before we started? Also a good reason to have before and after photos. So next, you might be on a roof or on a house that has hail damage, metal fascia, or maybe the metal fascia was dinged by hail, or maybe your customer wants you to replace some of the wood fascia. So it's a good idea to get, in a safe area, the size of the fascia kind of measured out right here. This is most likely what you're going to call 1x6, although it comes out to about 5 inches. The old and the new wood's not always the same. This is 3/4 of an inch thick. These are measurements that you want to take if you're going to estimate something for a customer. A couple things that we've seen problematic in the past as well is on a house like this that has cedar. We've had people in the past kind of wing it and bring pine and have our crews install pine. Well, that sticks out like a sore thumb, doesn't it? Typically, they only do that one time, learning experience. But you do want to make sure that, number one, you're quoting the right material. Pine versus cedar, totally different price point. And also it is good to pre-paint things, to put them up, and then, to touch them up once they're installed. So let's cut that from here. All right, so we're entering an area of the 2nd story roof. There's an easy area to walk up on. Seems relatively safe. An area that typically comes up on insurance claims or during the builds would be, this gutter is capped off with an end cap here on the right side. But sometimes on a roof you'll see an opening to the gutter like this, and that gutter being run all the way to the shingles. There's no real right or wrong way to do the gutter, but in this instance they did cap it off at the end. It's really personal preference. But let's just say that this is a complex gutter, which this one's not, and there's a couple mitered corners. Okay, we're gonna have to take that gutter off if it's run all the way down to the shingles in order to go ahead and put ice and water shield, new valley here, and new flashings. If it's mitered around the corners, chances are that when we take that off, the integrity of the metal, the aluminum, is not gonna be what it was before. And typically the insurance company owes for bringing the customer to pre-storm condition, not depreciating or devaluing that property. So as long as you show that adjuster, hey, this gutter is run all the way to the shingles. If it was 4 feet and we could just pop a straight line off and pop it back on, that would be great. But sometimes, like I was telling you, it'll be 20 foot this way, curve around the corner with a mitered corner. And really, at that point, what we need to be doing is estimating for a new gutter, because that's what's going to be the best for the property owner. As you can see, this roof has W-Valley metal. Some of that metal you're going to see aluminum. Older stuff you're going to see steel. There's really, again, no right or wrong choice. If a customer has metal and they want metal, put metal on the roof. The way that I typically prefer it and have had the most success would be to get rid of the valley metal and to close the valley and have a closed cut. That's the way that we have the most success. With that being said, you don't see little dings and scratches of imperfection in the valley. Okay, these valleys up close, any metal work on a place is always going to show the little things. It might look pretty from the ground, but a lot of times up close, it's actually not quite as pretty. So, and a customer might say, well, if you're not doing valley metal, you know, really I want something of more value. If you're saving on metal, then what do I get in return? And really the way we look at it is this is going to be a break even. Okay, yeah, we're not paying for the valley metal on the project, but then we're paying for a lot more shingles. So these shingles stop, as you can see, and there's a gap of roughly 7 inches. Okay, if we were to do a close cut, we would be taking on this roof, the lower slope is going to be this facet. This is the steeper facet. So these shingles, instead of being terminated right here, would run up this facet approximately how far, Tyler?
About a foot.
About a foot. So you've got, let's just call it 1 foot times roughly 15 foot in length, and we're using a lot more shingles instead of the metal. And then the shingles on the steeper slope are going to counter or go over the shingles on the lower slope, and that's because the water coming down from the lower slope isn't going to have as much power to go under the steeper roof. If done in reverse over 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to see water getting into the attic or whatever space on the inside, and you are going to have to look for you know, different crews from different areas will do things different, and that's the best practice, and that's the way that we have to make sure that we're doing it. Let's cut there. All right, so on this roof here, we've got TimberTex ridge cap, or what we call high profile ridge cap. You need to make sure that you know, that the insurance company is paying for the proper ridge cap. A lot of times in Xactimate or on their estimates, they'll put ridge cap. You know, this is a much higher priced product, and in Xactimate, which is good at estimating most items, a lot of times you're going to need to visit what the actual you know, material goes for. You can update that in the system, because this product here goes about 17 to 18 linear foot per bundle, where normal hip and ridge goes 25 to 30 feet. So we want to make sure that we're not just plugging in something on is software that's overall pretty good, that's not getting us the money that we need or deserve, and then was not, you know, getting the customer the amount that they need to complete the project. So the adjuster, they're taught to go ahead and enter that hip and ridge. Recently, I believe a week or two ago, we had success with showing an adjuster, hey, thank you for paying for the hip and ridge, unlike a few adjusters. But you know, this is a double layer, and because of that, not as much of it can fit in the bundle. Okay, this stuff being 2 layers like this is hurricane rated. Okay, so if you have it, or if we sell it, or if it's a retail job and you want to set yourself apart from another company, you would say, hey, we can give you a real hurricane proof roof. Really, the only thing additional that we would have to change from our normal Silver Pledge warranty would be TimberTex. Okay, these have a real 130 mile-an-hour wind rating, to where if the adjuster says, hey, we're not paying for that, we're paying for regular hip and ridge, because that's what's in the software. Okay, what you could show them is downloading the specs to that material, showing them the linear foot that it goes, and then also showing them the normal hip and ridge has a 110 mile-an-hour wind rating, where TimberTex has 130, and that they owe for what's here. So again, we're educating the customer, we're educating the insurance adjuster on why we need something covered. Okay, if you can explain it, a lot of times we'll have a lot more success in getting things paid for. So, other things that are commonly missed. See, we don't have to get too close on a 2-story. You know, I'm pretty comfortable on roofs, but to stay away the further is safer. We can see that the only area on this roof that has gutter guards is up front. The customer told me that they used to have a tree. The tree's no longer there, and because these gutter guards are here, you know, what would be owed for is to detach and reset these gutter guards. Unless there was something nailed through them, or sometimes they may be installed under the shingles and nailed through. At that point, if you show the insurance adjuster why they need to be replaced, we can get them replaced. Moving to the back of the roof, again, we're walking forward. We know this is a 2-story, okay? We like to walk the ridge line, okay, until we get to an area to where we have business. So again, I'm up here on a 2-story. We know that there's a pipe jack and a skylight. If I walk down and slip here, I know that I'm in a pretty safe area to go ahead and catch myself with the skylight. Again, we went over how to measure and document skylights down below. It is important that on your spec sheet that you let your production manager know, which skylight you're talking about. On this home, there is 3 skylights. This skylight is in the master bathroom, okay? So this being, skylight number 1 in the master bath, and this skylight opens and closes. The only real way to know that on this skylight would be to go on the inside or ask your customer. The insurance company owes for skylights. This again is something similar to that ridge cap, to where there is an option to select a skylight, but the standard option for a skylight for what they pay for material, labor, and profit is going to run about the price of the material only on this skylight. So there is an ability on certain items of the roof, even in Xactimate, to say this is a roofing bid item. We'll print out our supplier material invoice, put profit and labor and profit in there, and say we'd like you to consider a higher amount than just that normal button in Xactimate, because as you can see here, our material is a lot more. The skylight is a lot bigger. This is 4.5 foot. You might get a little pushback from an adjuster, but as long as you show them, hey, this is not a standard 4x2 skylight, this is bigger. It opens and closes. There's a lot more liability in the aspect of carrying this onto the roof. If we drop it, we buy it, right? We own it. So there's more that goes into a larger or a more detailed piece of equipment, such as the skylight, than a smaller one. While you're up here, I'm gonna go ahead, measure the size of the pipe jacks, and note how many of them there are for your production manager and also your estimate. Again, going a little bit extra on these reports is going to save you a lot of time. Nobody wants to run to the supplier for 1 pipe jack because you forgot. We've got to be very resourceful in our time. Is very important, and even more important than that, we have to own that we're responsible for our own safety. So the company will put you in a position to be safe, but really it's your job to not walk backwards. When we're not with you, it's your responsibility to take safety into your own hands. If you're not comfortable, use a partner. Have help, have one of the crew members that does our roofs do the inspection for you. There's plenty of ways around putting yourself in a dangerous position. While we're up here, you can take a shot, an overview of this slope. You can take an overview of that slope down there and note how many vents there are. Putting you in a little safer position than having to go. You don't have to go on every point or every part of every roof to be successful. With technology these days, if you're documenting and taking pictures, there's no reason to put yourself in an area down by the gutter where you could fall off or be in jeopardy. So that's all we got right here. Thank you. All right, let's act like this roof is completed and that we're looking for a good or a well done product. Some things that I like to look for would be the offsets, or how staggered the shingles are. So right here you can see the start and the stop of a shingle, and then up here above it you can see the start and the stop of another shingle, and so forth all the way up. If you read the small print on the bundles, most shingle manufacturers are going to call for a minimum of 4 or 5 inches in this offset. So just something easy to look for. We talked earlier about starting at the bottom and working your way up for safety, but also while doing this, you can look for shingles that are torn, footfall, maybe from the crew walking on the edge of the shingles, that we can have them swap out. And you can also see a bright nail, like a low nail or an angle driven nail that's popping through the shingles. So again, we're taking safety first. We're looking up at the roof. Again, right here is, if you want to get a close up, a little closer than what we might hope on the offset here. But that's just something that can set you apart from somebody else, and knowing how the shingles should look and what the correct offset are going to be. Any shingles like this that have torn or any manufacturer's defects, we want to mark that with chalk, okay? We really prefer the wax pen so that it doesn't wash off, and you take a picture of that and make sure that the crew swaps that out. As you can see right here, a little piece of this shingle came off, but what's important is that the shingles come around the pipe, not just stop here so water doesn't enter the side. Our roofers should be up on that, but also what we're looking for is that we're caulking around the edge of the pipe boot. So we're in a couple years expanding and contracting that this pipe boot doesn't leak. As you can see, just rubber around the gasket here. No surprise that in 8 years, these bad boys need to be replaced. An easy upsell to a customer could be the lifetime boots that do not rot, but these are the easiest to come by, and in a year following COVID, certain things like that may not be available. Going above and beyond, kind of looking for rust. This unit here is fine. It just appears to be surface rust on stainless steel. However, if you have a unit that's falling apart, there's no way that we can expect our roofers to take shingles and nails out of a unit like this and reflash it without it falling apart. That's your job to document, put on the contract that, hey, customer's responsible for getting their furnace stack removed and replaced, etc. Because we don't want to call on Christmas saying, hey, we got to come out here because there's a leak. Okay, we looked on a contract. Did you ever have your furnace stack replaced? You didn't. Why don't you start there and follow up with us tomorrow? That's a good thing that goes a long way. That'll do it. So at this point, we're about ready to get off the roof. A couple things that I wanted to go over was, as you can see on this plastic ridge vent, this is the best kind of ridge vent because you can't compress it when nailing, allowing a reasonable amount of air to get out. But a couple things that we want to make sure is that these nails are 3-inch nails. Ring shanked is the best. It's not mandatory, but something that's going to stick into the wood is a little better. Problem that we see on quality control is that when checking builds or ordering, that 3-inch nails might not come with a product, and then you have the roofers using 1 1/4-inch nails to go through something that's about 1 inch, plus the thickness of the shingles. These things will immediately fly off. So something to look for there in this area is making sure that we have the proper nails and that they do it consistently so we don't have waves in the ridge vent. Kind of hard to say that on all homes it's not going to look perfect. Kind of putting lipstick on a pig, an older place that might not be square, it's a little bit hard to do. Another area that we like to go above and beyond is sometimes these shingles right here will meet kind of closer down to this area, and you'll be able to put your hand under these shingles. Okay, ideally then at that point, if this was a little bit lower, we would have the roofers cut out this area and seal on both sides to where it's not a kite basically for wind to get into. This area you can see has some wind damage. It's at the top of the roof, so we want to make sure that this area all fits together and is appropriately fastened down. So getting off the roof, we want to take one step at a time, obviously. Gently grabbing things that could assist in a fall or keeping us upright. Getting down to the ladder and making sure that we're not fulcruming it up here at the bottom. And let's look at this area right here. I believe this comes to, let's get out the phone here and take a pitch measurement. But yeah, it's not going to work right now. But finding an area like this that could be a problematic area, taking the pitch, if it's a 312 or under, the best thing to do in this area would be all ice and water shield. If it's 212 or under, it would be to kind of rework this whole area. A lot of times we'll see shingles that were put on when the home was built, and it's not an appropriate method, or it's not an appropriate building material to go in this area. So if this was, let's say, we ran into this a few times last year, a 112, The customer's been experiencing leaks and they don't know why. A lot of times, if this was flatter, however you want to say it, wind-driven rain can get under the apron just because there's no pitch to the roof. When that's the case, which it was a few times last year, we had to document this area on another job, show what the pitch was, along with submit manufacturer's recommendations for a low slope building product. And with that, we had to use rubber. We had to run it up a minimum of 8 inches as code calls for. Termination bar it off, pop off the siding, and use the appropriate RPS tape and flashings to run the rubber up and over. It was not well accepted by the insurance company at first. We did have to inform the customer on why it needed to be done, why they had numerous leaks that the insurance company was paying for in that area, along with showing them the manufacturer's recommendations and a price, giving them a price for what we needed and how we would do that job. Now, on the front of a home like this, a lot of times the customers don't want to see black rubber, okay? We don't want to see something coming up here in the windows. We can give you a recommendation on what's going to work best and a warranty, but if the customer refuses for that to be done on their home, put it in writing on the contract. Kerrigan Roofing quoted $2,000 to remove all this wood, run low slope membrane up and over, reflash, repaint, do whatever we need to do for whatever $2,000 the customer refused and demands shingles. Customer then releases us from the obligation of any warranties that happen in this area, along with anything that could come from the building department. If they sign off on that and accept all responsibility, you know, run that by your production manager, contract it how he would like you to do that, and we'll put a path or a plan forward to lessen our liability to make sure that we all get paid, protect ourselves, and get the build completed appropriately. As you can see, we've exited the roof, taken off our cougar paws. A lot of times these, you know, walking around the yard will pick up a lot of moisture, dirt, and debris. We're going to enter the customer's home. We wanted to make sure that we didn't take that dirt and debris inside. To get on the roof, you guys must be wearing the cougar paws. Doesn't matter if it's steep, not tall, okay? We can't really choose where we want to be safe. These are the cougar paws. You're to be issued these before you get on the roof. And kind of go from there with you know, your tool belt and all the stuff that you need to be, you know, successful and efficient, along with safe on the roof. So a lot of times the only way that you're going to know if there's interior damage when filing a claim or when you start to work with a customer is to ask them. A lot of times they don't know if you don't tell them that that can be covered by the insurance company. So here you can see here in the garage, we've got interior damage and drywall cracks. This isn't something that you can plug into the Xactimate software and just get a price. So it's very important that you take overview pictures. What's in the garage? What are we going to have to move to complete the work? What are we going to have to cover? We're not going to be wanting to, you know, drip paint on a car or a new refrigerator. A lot of times, in these instances, you'll have to get 1 to 2 estimates from a subcontractor and submit those bids to the insurance company. And the insurance company, you know, deserves or is owed, you know, pictures and showing why does it need to be repaired and what does it take to make it full or you know, pre-storm condition again. So this insurance company here, they paid, I think it was $645 to patch this ceiling. I think our quote was around $1,400 or $1,500, and what that took into account was retexturing the drywall, coming back when it was, you know, cured, you know, spot priming it, coming back for a 3rd trip, and painting it 2 coats. Okay, the insurance company for $645 wanted us to do what they thought was gonna be, you know, what brought them to pre-storm condition. So again, we have to put that on paper. Why do we need to make multiple trips? Why does this whole area need to be painted? Well, if this whole area wasn't painted, then you're not going to have a uniform product, okay? And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Adjuster, that's why you paid for the full roof up there, because it was non-uniform. Getting the basic measurement, length and width of this ceiling, you can see there's a break in the ceiling up here, Okay, so the insurance company would owe for the break in the ceiling on over. Okay, and they would owe from one side all the way to the other. Okay, that's typically, you know, what's going to be owed in a situation like this. But the more information, the more pictures, the easier it is for your production manager to put a work order in, and the easier it is for that third-party subcontractor to get out here and understand what you need them to quote to be successful. There you go. So as you can see, we've entered the master bathroom here at the home. And from the roof, you could not really see through the skylight. It's aged, and there's a lot of whatever you want to call it up there on the glass. But doing the full inspection, entering the attic to see if the wood is okay, has H-clips, the ventilation is not blown over with insulation, and getting your eyes on something like this skylight. If we're going to rip this skylight out, it's important that we know that the skylight, you know, because they're owed for another skylight that has a hand crank to open and close. Okay, there's no way in the world that that new skylight is going to have a handle that fits exactly 10 3/4 inches right there. So just from experience and getting to a build site and not having things work, I know to take the extra time to get in here, take the measurement and the pictures for my production manager to then put the work orders in for interior trim to be done. The insurance company didn't want to pay for that originally. Surprise, surprise, but because I took the proper steps, measurements, and showing them, you know, why it's not going to fit, we were able to do a couple things, submit the real price of the unit and get quite a bit more money, along with getting interior trim work paid for as well, along with getting overhead and profit on the job. So, excuse me, I got a little something from there in my mouth. Taking that extra couple minutes, inspecting the inside where leaks are, or, you know, special skylights is going to once again, you know, get us the right equipment, material, and also let us, you know, complete that roof the day that we're here. We don't want to come back 3 weeks later with a special order skylight to once again kind of start work on the property. So again, this is a hand crank open and close skylight. You can have electric ones, you can have solar. Prices vary. Keep that in mind. All right, that'll do.